It's chaos.
It's a different type of Sunday scary.
It's your newest obsession.
It's Dirty Driving, a Formula One podcast.
We're the Hornsby sisters. I'm Katie.
And I'm Megan.
Yeah. Hello, hello.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back to yet another episode of Dirty Driving.
This time, it's to discuss the midnight race that tortured me in the middle of Saturday night, then proceeded to make me crabby all Sunday because of my lack of sleep, to then have my eyeballs still kind of hurt from looking at bright lights all Sunday or all Saturday night when I should have been sleeping, that I haven't been able to put contacts back in. So all of that means welcome to discuss the Japanese Grand Prix. My eyeballs literally do still burn.
Yeah, it was difficult to stay up. I took a nap before. I took a quick nap during. And then I napped through the last 10 minutes of the race because I literally could not keep my eyes open any longer. 10 minutes left. I'd stayed up for everything. 10 minutes left, and I couldn't hang.
During the red flag, I was setting alarms for 10 minutes so that I could get, like, I was laying on the couch like, oh, the alarm went off. Oh, still red flag. Restart the alarm. Because they said you would have a 10-minute warning. So I figured if I just kept setting it for 10 minutes, at some point I would realize the race was restarting. It worked. The logic did work. So anybody, if there's a red flag and it's in the middle of the night where you are at, set an alarm every 10 minutes. Just keep hitting restart. Not even an alarm, a timer. Just restart it. Highly recommend it. It is horrible for my sleep pattern, but it worked in terms of watching the race. Stay dirty, everyone. Don't get sleep. The Formula One motto.
Yeah, it was tough. Never really want to do that ever again. I'm sure we're going to have to, unfortunately. But, yeah,
It was so much easier with Australia because there wasn't a red flag.
Yeah, like if we had just raced through, I would have been awake. It would have been fine. The fact that we waited for 2 hours.
It was so hard.
It helped no one.
No, the puppies who just walked in to sit down next to me were like, this is not fun. We would prefer if it was dark. But I couldn't turn. I also had to watch the race in full light. There was no dim lighting. All lights had to be on. I had to have coffee. I think I had 3 cups of tea in the red flag because I was just downing caffeine. Like, God help me get through this. I made it through, kind of. I slept through. Okay, I'll be honest. I slept through the ending.
Yeah. I texted Megan, are you awake? Didn't hear anything. I was like, okay, I have to be the one to stay awake. I have to be the one to stay awake. And then, no.
I woke up for the podium celebration. I saw that it was Max, but I didn't think he was world champion at that point because I just saw it and I was like, oh, partial points, rolled back over, went to sleep. And then woke up the next morning and watched the whole thing to realize he was crowned.
So yeah, if you missed it, Max Verstappen is now a 2-time world champion. And that's
congratulations to Max.
Congrats, Max.
It was so confusing to know whether or not he was going to win at this race. Ultimately, he did. He is now 113 points ahead of Sergio Perez. Charles is in third. He is 51 points behind Checo. But ultimately, there's 112 points left on the table between the next rounds as well as the sprint weekend in Brazil. I completely forgot we have another sprint weekend.
Yay! I don't mind a sprint, but
no, I'm excited about it.
I really don't mind it. It'll be exciting. It's just, here we go again. I can't believe we have another sprint. I completely forgot about it.
Also feels very wild to have the championship proclaimed before the final sprint for some reason, but whatever. Nonetheless, He is 113 points ahead of his teammate. There's 112 left on the table, and ultimately means that he has clinched the Drivers' Championship. So this will be his second one. She says grumpily.
His second.
Everybody knows I wasn't hoping for this.
One. Yeah. I mean, none of us
knew
were
it was
for
coming.
it.
We knew it was coming. I knew it was inevitable. I am very happy for him. I do think that him and Kelly Piquet's photo of them hugging felt more like siblings and not like a couple. It was also very sorority girl and how they were holding each other's bodies. I was like, oh my God, is that Alpha Chi Omega for preparing for bid day? Nope, it's Kelly and Max.
I must have missed that photo.
Go look at it while I talk about the cost cap.
Where was it?
Kelly posted it. It was on her Instagram.
Oh, that one? Her like
they're
actual...
like holding each other's waists. They're like looking at each other, facing each other, holding each other's waists.
Oh yeah. Well, you know. I loved at the end of the race, she hopped on her phone to talk to whoever really quick. I don't know who it was that she was calling, but it was right after they announced that he was world champion. I don't know if it was get the sweatshirts out, it's real, it's happening, or what it was, but
we've all now been personally victimized by Helmut Marko in that sweatshirt and hat. Oh God, what a look. Not a good one.
Not a good one.
Okay, so we've dissected the beginning parts of this Max Verstappen victory weekend. Best part about it was, I would have to say, would be for Honda, the fact that they had a world championship decided for a team that they've been supporting with power units in their home race. But nonetheless, this weekend and last week brought us quite a lot of exciting, interesting, and controversial news. I think the first thing everyone knows that we're going to talk about, I already hinted at it, is the cost cap. So last week when we recorded, we were completely under the impression that as of Wednesday of last week, we were going to get an analysis and a better understanding of whether or not two teams, the rumor was that two teams had violated the cost cap. Well, on Wednesday, we found out that the FAA wasn't ready to give us an answer. Who's shocked?
No one. And the fact that, can I just say this really quick, Megan? The fact that they pushed it back till Monday after the race was going to happen, it's like, were you waiting to see if Max was going to win the championship before deciding what the consequences were going to be?
It's been a long time since last season ended. How you don't know these numbers is very confusing to me. But nonetheless, it was pushed back. I just wish they had told us sooner than the day the results are supposed to come out. Nonetheless, we are now here on Monday. Katie and I actually delayed recording so that we could have the results of this investigation and not have to wait till next week to discuss it. But the FIA has officially announced that two teams did in fact breach the cost cap. The first one was Aston Martin, but they were in a procedural breach. Apparently they filed or filled out a form incorrectly. That just feels like tax season to me. That literally just feels like American tax season. And this really plays on my anxiety that I'm filling out my tax forms incorrectly every year because I genuinely don't even know what they're asking me to begin with. This is the same type of breach that Williams had. They were found to be in procedural breach back in May of this year because they hadn't actually submitted their forms on time. So same kind of breach as Williams, not the first time we've heard about it. The more significant breach, I'll use that word instead, is the fact that Red Bull have committed a procedural and a minor financial overspend. That means that the minor financial overspend puts them at less than 5% over the cost cap. As of right now, we don't know what that punishment is going to be. The FIA Cost Cap Administration, yes, that is the name of the administration. And yes, it does kill me that they just literally gave it the most bland, the most well, duh name. There's not a financial sanctions. It's the FIA Cost Cap Administration Board. They are now determining the appropriate course of action. Red Bull has come out and said in true Red Bull fashion that they noted the FAA findings with surprise and disappointment. Okay, Christian, we know you're surprised. We know you're surprised. However, there is a report circling out there that the overspend was, I'm laughing because this just feels like such a fucking stupid excuse. This feels like my dog ate my homework. There's a report out there saying that Red Bull believed that the overspend was due to feeding the 1,000-member staff at Milton Keynes a free daily lunch and absent staff costs due to illnesses. I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, huh? I'm sorry. I think I'm a bit confused. And I'm also like, are you really that dumb, Red Bull? Like, do you not have a CFO? Or does Christian not talk to the CFO? I kind of got to echo Total Wolf's thoughts here. Like, bro, did you not look at the numbers?
Clearly, they did not. And if you've been on Twitter at all today,
Lunchgate
has not only made me hungry all day, so thank you, F1 Twitter, but it has also once again reminded me of how creative people can be. And I love the people that are like scounding the internet to find any photo of any driver eating and posting that. They really went over the cost cap by feeding Albon smiley face French fries.
Wait, the best was the punishment is someone said punishment should be the entire Red Bull team goes vegan, supervised by Lewis Hamilton. And I tell you, I was on the precipice of spitting my coffee across the room because that was hilarious.
That's hilarious.
Other ones that I think are funny are anytime the drivers have ever done like a grill, like the video of Daniel Ricciardo making pizzas, Daniel Ricciardo making pancakes. Then we had Carlos and Charles cooking too. And it's like, it will be like McLaren's under the budget because this was the chef. I can't. The internet has been amazing and Crashgate is far from over. Honestly, like, I can't even believe that this was their excuse.
Yeah, Lunchgate will remain supreme probably for at least another 10 days on Twitter. Like, it has to. Like, don't die out now. There's like lists and lists and lists of like names that people have come up with about like switching Max Verstappen into something food related. Like, it is just insane. It's so good.
The new thing is that they're putting photos of Hogwarts Great Hall and they're like Red Bull catering. I can't believe like the people are hilarious.
Check cholesterol Perez. It's so good.
It's just incredible. So good. I genuinely can't. I just like the videos of the kids crying at cooking competitions. That's like Red Bull catering team trying to figure out how they can spend $7 million on cooking dinner. It's just the internet has been incredible about this and I cannot get over it. The other one that I saw that was really funny is a picture of the food from Firefest. And it was like how the other teams are going to be eating to stay under the cost cap. Everybody knows that I have a weird obsession with Firefest and just like understanding how that could have happened. So that one really hit home.
And then like just the simple RBR : Red Bull restaurant instead of Red Bull Racing. Like they have been so good.
I have not laughed more ever. And truthfully, while I think Red Bull is probably really dumb for being like, my dog ate my homework. The people eat too much food. They didn't come to work enough. In the back of my head, I'm like, Christian Horner, you're either like really dumb or there is some giant marketing play here for something. Or like distract Twitter with Lunchgate so that we can get away with it.
This is the last one I'll read. You can't tell me they overspent on food when Max's B-Day cake looked like it was made by drunk me at 3 a.m. Honey, it was made by the team because they were out of money to spend on catering.
That cake was from this year. This year, they're actually obeying by the cost cap, and they can't have nice things. Last year, Max got a great birthday cake. This year, nope.
Nope. Didn't think so.
Nonetheless, we'll have to wait and see what the punishment is going to be. Personally, I hope it is some sort of ridiculous, like I know it's not going to be championship points. Like, that's too lofty, but there is written into the rules a public apology. And I feel like it'd be really awesome to make them do like a really uncomfortable public apology, like stand up in front of everybody at Abu Dhabi and proclaim like they're sorry. I just feel like it would be great to see that, some kind of like shaming. Like, that would at least be entertaining and give me more Twitter content. Like, if I can't have the punishment I want, like, give me something good on the internet.
Give me something good.
Or make the whole team go vegan. That was the best.
Well, I have the sad honor of reporting the sad news that came out. It actually came out today, October 10th. And I'm actually heartbroken about this. I don't know about you, Megan, but this is probably the saddest thing I've read in a minute. The W Series confirmed that the final 3 races of the 2022 season are canceled. The required funding that was due to the W Series from a recent contracted investment was not received, meaning that the COTA race and the doubleheader in Mexico are to be canceled and have been canceled, with the intent that they're going to focus on longer-term fundraising and that process to enable the longevity and financial health of the W Series into 2023 and beyond. I think I'm mainly heartbroken because I would have loved to see the W Series race in COTA. I was honestly looking forward to that a little bit more. Not that I was looking forward to it a little bit more than the race. Let me correct that. But I was really, really looking forward to it.
I think it's just kind of ridiculous because if the issue is money, how has nobody stepped up? How has nobody stepped up to make it happen? That's what I don't understand. I genuinely cannot fathom why nobody has stepped up. I'm not going to go through the list of names I've written down mentally in my head of people who could and do have the financial means to do so, but I genuinely think it is utterly ridiculous that the women's series does not have the money. That is their barrier.
Money.
In a world where in the pinnacle of motorsport, when the W Series is the supporting race for Formula One race weekends, at the point that there is not a female on the Formula One grid, and there is a massive push for there to be one in the future and provide the opportunities to make that happen, it is a damn shame. It is a damn shame that the answer is they don't have enough money and their season is done. I am so happy for Jamie Chadwick. I'm not saying anything about that. I am so proud of her for winning 3. I would love to see her race in the future. And hell, it was one of the things I was looking forward to about Austin. So it's just a damn shame, period.
It's incredibly disheartening that, again, like Megan said, no one has stepped up. The FIA hasn't done anything. F1 itself hasn't done anything. Not that I expect them to, but in times like this, where's the love for your supporting program?
Hey, go use all that money you made off of Miami and how fucking ridiculous those right. And hell, I saw how expensive they are next year. You've already got some of that pre-ordered ticket money, and go give it to W Series. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Stop pretending like, I'm sorry, money is not actually the issue. It's just the lack of support that's the problem.
Yes. And like Megan kind of mentioned, the premature ending means that Jamie Chadwick, who sat 50 points clear in the championship, is crowned the W Series champion for the third time in a row. So huge congratulations to her. Would have loved to see them finish out the season and have a real celebration at the end. And I think, not only does my heart go out for all of us fans that don't get to watch it, but all of the drivers. I think about Charlotte from McLaren, Charlotte Stefan, who moved over from McLaren to the W Series, who now doesn't get to finish out the season. There's so many hardworking people, hardworking women that have given up so much to race and be a part of the W Series, that to see it end like this and have absolutely no one step up.
Honestly, it just feels shitty. That's the word.
It's shitty. It's shitty.
It feels shitty. And it feels like the sport doesn't actually give, or I guess it feels like the motorsport community doesn't actually give a shit. That's how it feels. I don't know if that's in reality. I know that there are people that do care, but it comes off like, who cares about them?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
Okay. Now that we've gotten through that sad news, let's move to the silly news, the silly season news. We got to give an update. We had some updates this weekend. It is officially confirmed. It was confirmed ahead of quali that Pierre Gasly would be going to Alpine, where he would partner with Esteban Ocon, where I did a little research, and apparently the two of them didn't like each other because of some girlfriend issue.
Yeah, Pierre stole Esteban's girlfriend. Supposedly.
Also, speaking of girlfriends, did you know that Nick DeVere's sister dated George Russell and Max Verstappen? She was the Kelly Piquet before Kelly Piquet. She ran so that Kelly Piquet could walk.
Damn.
No, she walked so Kelly Piquet could run. Yeah. I said it backwards, but nonetheless, that's a little piece of hot goss I saw in the deep, deep bowels of Twitter, where I was during the red flag when I wasn't napping, I'll be honest. Okay. Part of the sad news in silly season is that Daniel Ricciardo will most likely, in fact, I think it is now basically a reality that he will not be on the grid in 2023. He himself even said, I quote, "The reality is I won't be on the grid in 2023," which is just bullshit because he's been the one advocating for a Vegas race and will not be racing. And all I can say is if he becomes a Mercedes reserve driver and the championship is shored up ahead of Vegas, I think they should let him race in it. That's what I'm saying. If he's a reserve driver anywhere, that is my ask. I will start a petition.
That's a great idea, Megan.
If the championship's decided, put Ricciardo in the car.
Hell yeah.
And then everyone else should get out of his way so that he wins.
Amen.
Just like I think that Vettel should win Abu Dhabi this year. Everyone should just get the hell out of his way. So that basically just leaves, in terms of silly season, 2 spots open, one at Haas and one at Williams. So Katie, I'm going to give you some questions. You just got to give me the driver you wish to see. So at Haas, there's 3 names: Schumacher, Hulkenberg, or Italian Jesus. So if you had to decide between Schumacher and Hulkenberg, who are you picking?
Schumacher.
If you had to decide between Hulkenberg and we'll do Hulkenberg and Italian Jesus.
Italian Jesus.
Italian Jesus or Schumacher?
Schumacher.
So that means her rankings are Schumacher, Italian Jesus, and Hulkenberg at the bottom. I would have to agree with that. I don't think there's any reason to swap out a German driver for another German driver. Especially a German. I love Nico. Don't get me wrong. I just would like to see mixed future.
Yeah, Nico's had his time. He's showed us what he can and can't do, and now it's mixed time, and he should be able to continue, whether it's on Haas or
at Williams.
At Williams,
up there.
I teed you up. I know it's coming.
Because if Schumacher gets done from Haas, there is some talks that Williams have had some discussions that he could potentially move there. I do think there would be some greatness in a Schumacher-Albon combination, especially because we saw how great Albon was at nurturing Yuki. I think that Albon could potentially nurture Mick. Yes, just in kind of being wise about the grid beyond actually driving. And that is our silly season news. That is our financial news, our sad news, and our silly season news.
Now we get to talk about where we actually went racing. So, Suzuka, great. Everyone loves it. The drivers really, really love it. Everyone sings its high praises. I think it was George Russell who said something in interviews like it should be in everybody's top 5, or it probably is in everybody's top 5. It's high speed with these fun S curves, and ultimately it's a driving challenge. It was built in 1962 by Shoshiro Honda, the founder of Honda, and designed by John Hugenholtz. And Honda wanted to build a racetrack because they wanted to become an automotive powerhouse. So they wanted their own test track, and that's what they did. And the cool thing is about the track is there is a pass over and under. And in the original design, there used to be 3. Unfortunately, we didn't get 3. We only got 1. But I love that shot when they're up in the helicopter and they go over and you can see one going one way and one going the other way underneath. It's a really cool track, and one that I really hope that Megan and I get to go to one day.
I want to see the fan costumes.
Yeah. I want to be in the fan costumes.
I don't know. They looked a little, first off, those driver outfits, I feel like that was real damp in there. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm proud of you for staying put, but like, it was a little, just giving the heebie-jeebies over the TV. Okay, in terms of the Grand Prix stats, this one is actually kind of fun to talk about the stats. First off, it's actually like the track itself is a relative latecomer to the F1 calendar. The track joined in 1987, but there was actually 2 Japanese Grand Prix prior to that. They were 1977 and 1978, if I'm remembering that correctly, and they were at the Fuji Speedway. Then the Grand Prix fell off the calendar and reappeared in Suzuka in 1987, where it stayed there up until 2007 and 2008, where they went back to Fuji for just a couple of like little jaunts back there. Michael Schumacher is the most successful driver at this track and the Japanese Grand Prix in general. Those are 2 kind of statements, so I just did some mental math and checked myself. He won it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, which is pretty impressive. He also won 2 Pacific Grand Prix that were held at Suzuka in 94 and 95. McLaren and Ferrari are tied with 7 victories in their history at Suzuka, so it was kind of interesting. If a Ferrari had won this weekend, they would have become the most winning team at the track. There are quite a few winners at the track that are still on the grid. We had Hamilton, we had Alonso, we had Vettel, and we had Valtteri Bottas, who most recently won back in 2019, which is the last time we raced there. And yes, it is wild to say that. It is wilding for that to be a legitimate statement that comes out of my mouth. In 2019, Valtteri Bottas won. Mercedes clinched their 6 constructors. However, the Drivers' Championship would not be decided there. It would wait until later on in 2019 as the battle between Lewis and Valtteri continued. Sebastian Vettel would take P2 and podium there, as followed by Lewis Hamilton. Another interesting kind of things about Suzuka is that it has, out of the 26 times it's been held there, 15 of the wins have come from pole position and 11 from P2. I think I said those numbers correctly. Let me just say it again to double check. Out of the 31 races held at Suzuka, 26 times they've been won from the front row, 15 wins from pole, 11 from P2. I do think I messed that up the first time. I apologize. Numbers are hard. So we can add another number to that list. Now it is 16 wins from pole, as Max Verstappen won from pole this weekend. Here, the Drivers' Championship was decided this year, but the last time it was decided here was 2011 with Sebastian Vettel. In fact, more stats for you that are interesting about this track. 12 times the Drivers' Championship has been won at the Japanese Grand Prix. 13 times it's actually been decided in the country of Japan. One of those was actually at the Pacific Grand Prix. So lots of interesting stats about this place. It's a memorable track because of the history at the track, but also the celebrations and how much drivers love and appreciate it. Plus, like I said, the fans really bring it.
And one last thing I wanted to mention before Megan jumps into the weekend recap. It is Yuki Tsunoda's first home race. He has raced on this track many times before in Formula 4. He said in interviews that he had done over 10,000 laps on this track, so he knew some tricks and was going to get some people. So this is actually the first time Japan has seen a home driver since Kobayashi in 2014. So you could tell just from his excitement how thrilling it was for him to be at home, to be racing in front of his peers, his co-citizens. I don't know what you would call that. Co-citizens, I'm going
countrymen.
With. His countrymen.
Country people.
Country people. So yeah, it was great to see. I love seeing his smile. Even during the red flag, he was all cheers. So
honestly, let's be honest, Katie. Yuki was just happy to be back at the airports in Japan. He told us it was the cleanest bathroom he's ever been to. He said cozy. It was a word that he used to describe the toilets in Japan, in the Japanese airport bathroom. So looks like we got to add Suzuka to the list. I need to put this to the test. Okay, let's talk about everything that led up to the Grand Prix. I am going to let me just say, FP1 at 10 p.m., I kind of digged. Not going to lie. I was still awake. I was wide awake. It was a wet session for FP1 that ended up with Alonso going fastest. We saw the full wet tires. We thought those were kind of irrelevant for a second after last weekend. Maybe not us. I kind of thought they might be irrelevant. F1 Twitter really thought that they were irrelevant, but they showed up this weekend and they were definitely needed. Notable things that happened in FP1. We had Mick Schumacher actually losing control. Technically, this didn't happen in FP1. The timer had run out. Schumacher lost control and hit the barrier after the checkered flag on his way back to the pits. Essentially what happened, he had a massive aquaplane, which left the team having to do a lot of work on Friday. Ultimately, we would find out that he would not be able to participate in FP2. This is really another blow to Haas in terms of the budget. This is the third damaged chassis by Schumacher. The first one was way back in Jeddah. The second one was at Monaco. And now this is the third one at Suzuka. So the team will need to get a fourth to be able to have a spare to be able to use for the rest of the weekend, because it's not like you can show up at a weekend with just one chassis, or there will be some questions on if it is damaged, if the team is going to be able to continue to race that weekend. So Katie, kind of a question for you in terms of like, but as we know, we've talked about the budget, but as the budget gets smaller next year and teams need to be more conservative about their spends at the same time that the season is getting longer, do we see more of these situations happening where we have teams being like, shit, we don't even have the tools to be able to field a team? I hate how I said field there. It's not baseball, but you know what I'm saying? Like, is this going to become a bigger problem in the future?
Hands down, absolutely. I'm surprised we haven't seen it thus far this year. We may see it in the coming races. But all in all, I don't think the FIA, Formula One, whoever you want, the fans, can expect teams to continue just willy-nilly spending, replacing chassis, replacing parts when there's a budget. And I would be shocked if maybe it doesn't happen next year, maybe it's the following year, if a team won't have to sit out and not start due to not having the tools that are required.
Especially if the budget is then down to 135 million and there's, let's say, 26 races on the calendar, 25 races on the calendar. Hell, I would even say 24. There's definitely this weird intersection of the two becoming problematic. We know that last year there was some questions about not being able to afford an additional chassis for Haas. There were some questions a couple of years before that about Williams not being able to afford a chassis. So it is, in fact, a question. And really, this budget getting tighter and more races is going to become a problem.
Especially with, I might regret saying this, especially with younger drivers who are not as experienced, who do not have as much control, who, you know, sometimes find themselves in the barriers more often than our veterans. So I'll be intrigued to see, again, how next year plays out with a smaller budget, more races, and some new faces on the grid that, you know, Gunther sat Mick down and was like, you can't crash again.
Yeah. It also doesn't help that I feel like we've had Monaco was a wet race on a street track.
Mm-hmm.
Singapore was a wet race on a street track. Suzuka was a wet race on a tricky track. Jeddah is Jeddah. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, there's nowhere to go. Baku is Baku, nowhere to go. It's not like everything is France. Oh, by the way, France is off the board. And France saw the Ferrari get destroyed. So Miami's Miami. That's a street track that's going to be tight. I can't even imagine what the street track in Vegas is going to look like, because other than the main strip, I don't remember those roads being very wide.
No.
I don't know. Just some food for thought, just some thoughts. Maybe there needs to be some reevaluation there. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what the FAA is going to do about it. Just an interesting chat. So then we get to 1 a.m. our time. 1 a.m. our time, FP2 starts, and guess what? It's a 90-minute session. I fucking forgot about this until I got note. I knew it was happening, but then, you know, at midnight, you're not thinking about, like, what the hell? At midnight, I realized, oh my God, this is a 90-minute session, because they were supposed to be doing the Pirelli prototype tire test. Well, that got canceled, but the session was still 90 minutes. So then my bitch ass is up even later. We will get to see a longer practice session. Katie and I will get to see a longer practice session in Austin. It doesn't make up for the whole W Series thing, but I think it will be interesting. And then Mexico is planning to be like the makeup session. But yeah, really unfun. Thank you, Pirelli and the FIA. Could we have done this at like a morning track for us? I know that's a lot to ask for as Americans. I know a lot of people have to stay up late. I know that's selfish, but just a thought. It hurt my soul. Then we get to Friday night, Saturday day in Japan time at 10 p.m. our time. We had FP3 where Max Verstappen topped the charts. The weather was much better here. They were out on slick tires, and literally it killed me, but brought me such great joy to see Sainz and Leclerc separated by 0.015 seconds. Looks like the Ferraris had some pace, but not enough. Is going to be my thought. They had some pace, but not enough. In qualies at, again, 1 a.m. my time. Ugh, it's just so hard to say that. Q1, both AlphaTauris were complaining about their brakes. Literally, Pierre Gasly was yelling on the radio. So was Yuki. It wasn't pretty. Ultimately, Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, Kevin Magnussen, Lance Stroll, and Nicholas Latifi would all go out in Q1. It literally didn't matter for that Latifi was P20. He was starting P20 to begin with because he had a 5-place grid penalty. Well, no one thought he was going to qualify above 15. Let's be honest. I ain't even going to pretend like that happened. It was a thought that anybody had. Q2, this is when it was very clear that the Mercedes just didn't have the pace at this track at all, and they really just didn't have the pace to compete. In Q2, we had Daniel Ricciardo, Valtteri Bottas, Yuki Tsunoda, Guan Yu Zhao, and Mick Schumacher all go out. I was very thankful that Vettel got into the top 10, as it would have been a bit sad for his quality session to end soon in Suzuka. We know he loves the track. He said it. He got a little misty talking about it this weekend. I was very sad to see Ricciardo not make it to Q3 either, considering his Q1 had been pretty solid. At one point, he was sitting at the top 5 teams. The dogs are playing because they am talking about qualies right now. In Q3, Vettel was there again. I'm going to say it again because it brought me joy. Max Verstappen took pole position. Charles Leclerc was 0.01 seconds behind him. It was 0.75 meters between the two. It's the closest qualifying of the season. Closest qualifying separation of the entire season. It was great to see Charles try to really battle and push here. Happy to see Max Verstappen take the pole position, as we knew what was going to happen this weekend. Unfortunately, in that session, we had a little moment. Norris was on his out lap and he passed Verstappen. But as he was going to pass Verstappen actually cut into him, essentially, and it required Norris to go onto the grass to avoid an incident. Post-session, Verstappen would be summoned to the stewards over that incident. The result would be Verstappen was handed a reprimand, his first of the season. Really not surprising he didn't get a greater penalty here. A lot of people were surprised he didn't get a greater penalty here. Norris even called for it, but let's be honest, the precedent has been set for these incidents. Verstappen ultimately said that it was caused his tires losing temperature, that the car snapped. Post-qualifying, Fernando Alonso, who had a decent qualifying session, he was in 7th, Ocon was in 5th. Fernando Alonso said he was hoping for a chaotic race up front so that he and Ocon could capitalize on it. So, Katie, my question to you is, do we love Alonso for the comments like this that he makes?
Hell yes. We love chaotic energy from a chaotic man who is hoping for a chaotic race. It just spices things up when Alonso opens his mouth.
Correct. It's never not interesting when that man has to make a spicy comment.
This podcast is brought to you by Racing Thread, Formula One clothing for any occasion.
Their clothing features subtle, evocative, embroidered designs for your favorite F1 moments.
From Ricardo's Monza shoey to Sebastian's Australian scooter ride.
From Lewis's Brazilian comeback to Carlando's round of golf.
Whether you're out to dinner with friends, watching the race at home, or cheering in the grandstands,
gone are the embarrassing sponsor logos. Instead, Racing Thread is F1 clothing you are comfortable wearing anywhere.
Right now, Dirty Driving listeners can get 15% off Racing Thread's entire range of t-shirts, sweatshirts, and polos using the code Dirty Driving.
That's Dirty Driving, all capitals, no spaces, for 15% off their entire clothing range.
Head over to racingthread.com to shop F1 racewear for anywhere. Which brings us to the race. Brings us to Sunday. Well, not Sunday. It brings us to, I guess it is Sunday at midnight. Saturday evening at midnight, however you want to say it. It was
Sunday in Japan.
A struggle to stay awake, to be prepared. Our parents took me out to dinner, fed me wine, fed me pasta, and I should have abstained from both of those in order to stay awake, but I did not because at the end of the day, I'm a Hornsby, and the Hornsbys love their wine and pasta. So, Pierre Gasly started from the pit lane due to a change in both his front and rear wings, but before we knew it, it was lights out and away we went. Max and Charles both got away well. Max, not as well. So Charles and him were battling into the first turn, but Max came out leading the race. Before we knew it, it was a Vettel spin after putting a wheel on the white line. He overcorrected, then touched Alonso. All while that was happening, poor Carlos, lost traction, aquaplaned, and ran off into the barriers, causing the first DNF of the race. Albon had a car issue, causing the second DNF all within the first lap. Pierre had a huge piece of sponsorship wall stuck on his front wing, blocking his view. The safety car comes out and runs one lap before a red flag in lap 3. Before we talk about the red flag, I do have to say that Lance Stroll, my dude, had a killer start to the race. He sent it up the inside, right up against the pit wall, and climbed up to P11. So props to him. And if you watched any of the red flag, you watched the beginning of the race many, many, many times. We analyzed every single person. We looked at every single person's dash cam, and we really took in what the start of the race looked like since we were waiting for so long. So, as the red flag is coming out and the drivers are heading back to the pits, there was a scary moment. Pierre Gasly, one of the last on track after he pit to change his front wing, zoomed past one of the tractor trailer vehicles that is used to remove the F1 vehicles from the track. It was very frightening. It was very scary. At first, we didn't know what it was. We just saw Pierre yelling in the garage when he got back. And at first, I was very unsure of what it could have been that he was yelling about. And then more and more as time passed, we came to see the videos, the replays of the tractor on the racing line while Pierre was passing. This is frightening. He mentioned multiple times, this is a scenario that he could have passed away. This could have resulted in a death. And the history of this track does include the saddening fatal accident of Jules Bianchi and the trailer as well. So, Megan, some thoughts on this, please, if you don't mind.
I think my biggest criticism is that the FIA clearly just doesn't have its priorities in line, and clearly neither does the track here, because this is literally unexcusable knowing the past. And when tragedy happens, the only way forward, the only way to make a tragedy make sense or to move on, to heal from it, is to have there be change. And there clearly wasn't. And it's heartbreaking that it was Pierre Gasly, who was very close to Jules, that was the driver that was there, to see it all. Is on board is fucking clear. And clearly the FIA has to get their priorities straight, because the amount of time and energy going into Lewis Hamilton's nose ring could have been adequately, redistributed to, things like track safety for drivers in the wets. So I think it really just makes me, it's the cherry on the sundae. It's the icing on the cake. It's the little bit of what the fuck is happening for the FIA for me to really question why this is called the pinnacle of motorsport. Because, there have been a lot of times this year that we've asked these questions, like, what are they doing? I mean, we didn't understand Max becoming champion. No one knew the point system. Then we have incidents like this. We have all of the talking about what underwear they're wearing, and we have jewelry conversations, and we have penalties that don't make sense and inconsistencies from the stewards, and we have safety issues. What are they doing? Are they trying to alienate the fans? Are they trying to make it so that the sport looks like a joke? Because it kind of felt like a joke. Never, ever, 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 ever in a million years should that recovery vehicle have been on track, period. And the FIA needs to figure out how they need to reallocate their efforts into safety and not bullshit like Lewis Hamilton's nose.
Amen. All right. We got word that the race was going to restart, and the drivers start heading back to their cars. Everyone's excited. We can do it. We're going to race. But before we know it, the rain picked back up and the start gets suspended again. If you were able to stay awake, you know that we watched the binnacle car test the conditions of the track for what seemed like forever. Finally, we got word that the race was going to restart with approximately 45 minutes left on the clock. We finally see the cars back on track after about 2 hours of waiting, and they are behind the safety car for a rolling start. After a lap or two with the safety car, on lap 6, the safety car pulls in, and we are back to racing. Before we know it, everyone is diving into the pits for inners. We see a double stack from Merck, which absolutely screws Russell, putting him in last. And Alonso led the race by choosing not to pit, followed by Danny Rick and Mick Schumacher. Danny and Fernando pit, giving Mick the opportunity to lead his first ever race before Max Verstappen came in hot, retaking the lead. But I'm going to pause for a moment and just say mad props to Mick. So happy for him. That's like a moment you'll never forget as a driver. So cheers to him. Can't wait to see him lead the race again in the future. By lap 11, Leclerc, Perez, and Ocon have all picked off Schumacher, while Vettel is up to 6. Latifi is also in the points, along with hometown hero Yuki. With less than 20 minutes to go, Max is clear of Leclerc by 10 seconds. Ocon is doing a absolutely phenomenal job holding off Lewis Hamilton. I'm once again very impressed by SC Busty, and he deserves more praise than any of us give him. I will say it again. I've said it once this season, but he is my new most underrated driver of the grid. Sorry, Pierre, but SC Busty, your new teammate, takes that title. Alonso was making moves to overtake Vettel in 6th, while Russell had picked off Latifi for 8th. By lap 22, Verstappen led by 16 seconds, while Perez began closing in on Leclerc. Alonso makes a late pit from 7th, falling to 10th for fresh inters, and did that pay off for him? Hamilton was still breathing down Ocon's neck, but is just unable to get around him no matter what he tried. At this point, Perez is all over the back of Leclerc with just 5 minutes to go, and Alonso on those new inters gets around Latifi and then catches up with Russell for 7th, meaning he is back in the fight with Vettel. Finally, we get to the last lap, and there was some, I think, confusion about whether it was the last lap, whether it wasn't the last lap, what was happening. I think the general consensus for everything that I'm about to talk about from this point forward is confusion. Everyone was confused. It was a chaos, confusion, contraption. I wanted to get another C word in there. So Verstappen is cruising to victory while Leclerc and Perez are still battling. In the last chicane, Leclerc runs off track, staying ahead of Checo when crossing the finish line. Meanwhile, Alonso and Vettel have a drag race finish, with Vettel ending just 0.011 seconds ahead of Alonso. They basically crossed at the same exact moment. Had they had tongues, if they were the cars in Disney's Cars, we would have needed a photo finish. So here again is where it gets more confusing. Max wins the race, but is not world champion. That's what we're told. Okay, we're going to go with that. They interview Max. Then they pull Checo up. And in the middle of the Checo interview, it's announced that Charles received a 5-second penalty for gaining advantage off track, which pushed him down to 3rd place, effectively moving Checo up to 2nd, crowning Max Verstappen the 2-time world champion that he stands in today. Max gets called back up to the interview before they finish off with Charles, and then they go back to Checo, and then they head to the cool-off room, and they're like, Max, you're the champion. And Max like, no, I'm not. And they're like, yes, you are, actually. And he's like, well, everyone's telling me something different. So then they take him to this private room with this big red chair, which I'm kind of jealous of. Our grandma used to have big red chairs like that, and it made me that with this plush white fur blanket throw. And he's sitting there, and it's lonely for him. He said he got lonely, so he went back to the other room with Charles and Checo and all of that. And math is still happening, and we're still figuring it out, and everything's trying. Is it full points? Is it partial points? Like we all thought it was the whole entire race. It ended with full points. Max Verstappen wins. He's champion. And that's because he was able to score more than 8 points than Charles and 6 points more than Checo. So crowning him champion of the world for the second year in a row. Yay, Max. Megan. Oh, sorry.
So the reason why it was full points, I'll explain. The reason why it's full points, and I understand it now that I understand it, but trust me, I didn't understand it like 2 days ago, is I did not understand that the new points allocation that came about after Spa that said if you only got to 50% of the race but under 75, it'd be this points. The reason it was full points is because after the red flag, they started again and went to the end of time. And so thus, because the race was able to be restarted after a red flagged session, points were awarded and full points were eligible for the race. Trust me, I literally did. If you had given me the set of, if they're 50 to 75%, 75 to 100, and told me points, I would have not said that full points would have been awarded. They didn't even know that full points would be awarded. Max Verstappen didn't even know that full points would be awarded. The fans were confused. I was confused. It was very confusing. Couple of key things to point out about these results. First off, Guan Yu Zhao got the fastest lap. Unfortunately, points weren't awarded because he was outside the top 10. But in terms of the top 10, Katie, I am happy, elated. In fact, this is the most important news to come out of this weekend in terms of points. Nicholas Latifi was in the points. My prediction is true. Call me Nostradamus. I predicted this in my crystal ball. All of the drivers have received points this year. I'm literally not counting Nico Hulkenberg because I didn't count Nick De Vries either. It was the original 20 on the grid starting it out, the first drivers. But I feel like I predicted more because Nick De Vries also got points. So I saw into the future. Thank God Nicholas Latifi didn't let me down because I would really be pissed off. Also, important news. Katie is smirking at me like I should just shut the fuck up. So I'm going to move on to... You need to let me have this win.
I'm giving it to you. I didn't say anything. I'm giving it to you. You have the win. It's all you.
This was a great prediction. This is the only thing I'll ever predict in my life. This is it. This is it. This is all I get. I'm putting this on my grave when I die. Okay, in other news, Sebastian Vettel was the driver of the day. Fucking deserved. It was deserved. Let's all put this out there. He loves Suzuka. He loves the track. He loves the people. He cried. He laughed. He wore the headband all weekend. It was amazing. But most importantly, on track, he finished P6. One, this is awesome because of that love for Suzuka. And two, this is awesome because after the first lap and he spun, to go from spinning lap 1 to finishing P6 and getting valuable points, chef's kiss. This is also a back-to-back P6 finish for Aston Martin, as it was Lance Stroll that was P6 last race.
Yay. All right. Let's talk about our fantasy. Megan moved up to 4th place with 15,803 points, while I still sit in 17th. Tattoos, you may ask? The appointments are booked. Get ready, everybody. We're getting the tattoos. Megan was our Max Verstappen of the weekend. Relax was our Sergio Perez. And Mr. Hawkeye was our Charles Leclerc.
In terms of winners and losers, I'm going to just put this out there. Esty Bestie Ocon was my winner. I'm starting strong. I'm not even, no pretense, straight to the point here. He qualified P5. He finished P4. It's the best result for the team this year. But really the reason I gave it to him as the winner is that it was his battle with Lewis Hamilton that was awesome to watch. His defense of Lewis was incredible. And really after the race, the post-race interviews, he mentioned that he was Ocon goes, I'm laughing. Sorry. He goes, I'm pretty sure it was just Lewis and I that were having fun out there in this battle, which I loved. Their little banter went back and forth after the race, but then it also continued onto Instagram. They said that they were potentially going to have like an RC race in Austin, which I love that him and Lewis are friends like that. It was just exciting to see him have a great race. The defense of Lewis was incredible, and really fun to watch as a fan. You were just waiting for Lewis to find that moment, and he couldn't, and Ocon was able to hold him off. Additionally, in the points, this took Alpine back to being fourth in the constructors ahead of McLaren.
And my winner was Sebastian Vettel. How could it not be? Like Megan said, he won driver of the day. He loves Suzuka, and it was probably one of his strongest weekend performances of the year. After an off start that caused a spin at the beginning of the race, he was pushed to the back of the pack, but he was able to pit first for intermediates that pushed him back up into the points. He held off the strong attack by Alonso and beat him by just those milliseconds, thousandths of a second, and gave Aston Martin, like Megan said, their second consecutive sixth place finish. So happy that he got a great finish in his favorite place because he deserved it. And it just makes me miss him so much more already, but it'll be okay.
Pull up to the crying fest after Abu Dhabi. Katie and I will be leading the crying. We'll have tissues for all. Handkerchiefs if we're feeling fancy.
Yeah, custom handkerchiefs if we're feeling extra fancy.
Oh, goodness. We'll have to get Racing Threaded on it. I'll get some help from them. In terms of my loser, a team that probably needs to have a cry session as well, and we've literally, Ferrari has just put their drivers through hell this year. I mean, if Charles Leclerc hasn't aged 10 years, the man has incredible genetics for not showing a gray hair that I'm aware of. But it was just a big L for Ferrari on this weekend. First off, we had Sainz out on lap 1. And really, what was so scary about it is that half of his car was literally still just sitting out on track. And if you watch the onboard from Lewis Hamilton, he's like this far. Like, I mean, an inch and a half away from him, and it's terrifying. He went into the barriers after he was trying to move out of the path of the spray, hit a puddle. It's his 5th retirement of the season, so it's just very unfortunate for Carlos. And then Charles Leclerc had the penalty at the end on the last corner as he was holding off Checo. He'd been able to hold off Checo for so long, and then he made that mistake at the end. Now he trails Sergio by 51 points in the Drivers' Championship. It's not impossible for him to take back second place, but I highly doubt it's going to happen. And ultimately, this race was again, I asked myself after seeing what had happened and the fact that he made that mistake at the end was just like, does he actually have the ability to fight for a real world championship? And I just genuinely am not sure. It would require Ferrari to have a rocket ship.
And my loser is a sad one. It's Alfa Romeo. They failed to score this race, so they just have 1 point to show for the last 9 races. They're only 7 points clear of Aston Martin in the fight for 6th, and it's just been bland. And
wait, I do have something to say about Alfa Romeo. We did learn this weekend during the red flag that Valtteri Bottas has a pet reindeer named Rosa.
We did learn that. That was the winning moment for them of the weekend.
I would love to meet this reindeer. Valtteri, I'm interested. Do you need a reindeer trainer? I don't like large animals. I'm sorry. They kind of scare me. Never mind. I take it back.
Our honorable mention of the weekend is Sergio Perez. How could it not be? He rebounded from a frustrating quali to deliver consecutive podiums for the first time since Monaco and Azerbaijan. He held Charles off, essentially, ensuring that Max Verstappen took home the championship. So what more could we ask from your supporting driver? Honestly, nothing. This was also the first time that he finished in the top 6 at Suzuka. His best finish here has been 7th in the past. So all around, great weekend for him, and I hope Max takes him out to celebrate because, my God, does he deserve it.
Okay, not too much of a celebration. We don't need a repeat of Monaco.
I thought we agreed we weren't going to bring that up again.
Look, I didn't say anything. I just said we don't need a repeat of Monaco. I didn't say any details.
Okay.
Excuse the argument. Moving on to our hidden gem. Our hidden gem of the weekend has to first be the fans in their costumes. Like Katie and I have said multiple times, it was just incredible. I just loved it, and it really made me want to go to Suzuka as soon as possible. And I'm very happy that we got to see a lot of them in some of the earlier practice sessions. And kind of when it was raining and nothing was going on track, it was great to be able to see some of the costumes. I loved anyone dressed up as drivers. I loved the big signs. I loved the whole section of people like Daniel P1, Max P1. I was like, there's so much happening here. I don't know what's going on. It was incredible. The second hidden gem, and I do love this, and if you haven't seen the video, go look at the Mercedes F1 Instagram and Twitter accounts. Mercedes went bowling this weekend. Every year, Lewis takes the team bowling, and they made it happen again this year. And so it was just awesome to see. It was probably an awesome night for the team, and really a special shout out to the Merc admin for the videos. Also, no one was wearing bowling shoes. It was pointed out when George Russell got back-to-back strikes. You also see Lewis Hamilton do some like bowling witchcraft and hit like a split. Katie loves bowling, so this is definitely an awesome thing. I also love seeing Nick DeVries eating pizza. I didn't see Toto in the video, so I'm just like, did Toto fail at bowling? Did Toto go? I need Toto bowling content. So awesome overall. Two great hidden gems, the fans and bowling. None of them are Formula One related, it feels like.
Next week is not a race week. The worst, simply the worst, but we also really need it to prepare for Austin in 2 weeks. That does not mean our F1 content stops. Join us as we are deep diving next week on our last team, Haas, Kevin Magnussen, and Mick Schumacher. Until next time.
Don't forget my boyfriend, Gunther.
Oh, and Gunther. We'll talk about Gunther. Until next time, stay dirty.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us at Dirty Driving Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
Until next time, stay dirty.